Hey folks, this video is about why I sold Valero, held Exxon Mobile, and the economic principles or the financial principles, investing principles involved in my decision. And I'm hoping that this may help some of you further your financial education with regards to markets, how to move in and out and around and profit from cycles as we're in. While many are stressing about inflation and many other things, there are a lot of us out there making a ton of money. And I'm not saying I'm making a ton of money. It's not my goal here. My goal is to strategically position myself for my last 10 to 15 years of life. Okay, so I am not in this to make a hoard of money, although we've already doubled our net worth and we're going to triple by the end of this year, and we may do that. Okay, so we'll see. But anyway, this video is about why I sold Valero and held Exxon and the economic principles involved there. Now, let's get into this. Not economics advice, financial advice, or advice of any kind. You and you alone are responsible to seek out professional advice that is right for you and all your affairs. This video is for entertainment purposes only. This is not a recommendation to buy Exxon Mobile stock. Okay, so no one be aware of that. Those are my disclaimers. Okay, so I sold Valero and it's down 5 points from where I sold it at, right? Whereas I held Exxon Mobile and it's up 16 points from the same time. So that's a 20-point swing in our favor by choosing between the two stocks. How did I know to do that? That has to do with geopolitics and many other things, and what each company is into, what margins are going to be like going forward, which is very important. And I'm going to get into why I held Exxon and will hold Exxon. Unless it goes ridiculously high, I'll sell out, wait for a correction, and buy back in. But the problem with Valero was it's heavily into biodiesel. The price of agriculture is going up, isn't it, with inflation right now, to put out biodiesel, to grow corn and whatever else they're making their biodiesel from. Those costs, input costs, have gone way up, which is going to put pressure on Valero's margins in the biodiesel sector, as well as if oil begins to correct, which I think is coming in the next year or so. Valero's margins will also get further compressed with regards to refining. As oil companies make less, they have to pay less for refining, which leads to a margin compression. So I think Valero, while it's a great company, and if there's a major correction, I will buy back into Valero. I don't currently, right now, I just see a lot of headwind for Valero because of its product pipelines. Now, on the other hand, Exxon Mobil, why did I hold it? Well, remember in the crash of 2020, oil, natural gas was so low that many natural gas producers went belly up, many of the smaller ones. Exxon Mobil at the same time was compiling cash, paying down debt, and was sitting there buying up these smaller bankrupt natural gas producers from the banks as they filed bankruptcy for pennies on the dollar, increasing its natural gas reserves substantially at very low cost, okay? Which I would think some of it they picked up, and it's only $1 per unit to produce, which right now NG is selling at $9 a unit today, okay, on the market board. So that's a huge margin, isn't it? It's a huge increase in their reserves. Now, on average, I think ExxonMobil has tapped and produced and acquired all of its natural gas reserves at somewhere around $2 per unit, okay? But at $9 a unit, the value of those reserves have gone way up, haven't they? Now, when natural gas kept bouncing off of 6 to 4, 6 to 4, that's when I knew Exxon was the play for me going forward. This isn't advice. But I knew that their reserve values were just going to skyrocket. Forget oil, just the natural gas reserve values. With the geopolitics of the Ukrainian war, which is when I sold out, right? Or made this, did what I did. Okay, that was the other reason. As the sanctions go on Russia, the geopolitics, this is where geopolitics is very important with regards to investing. That's why if you're listening to the Davos conference right now, that's a good idea too, but they do a lot of bait and switches in Davos. What they're telling you may not be what they're talking about behind closed doors. So no one be aware of that. So Davos is just, I listen for some hints, but I don't take it for gospel because I know that it's all bait and switch half the time. Okay, so ExxonMobil's reserves have gone up. Now that Russia's dependence on Russian gas is going to be done, 25% of the EU's natural gas is now going to come LNG form from the US. Okay, and that's going to require some shipbuilding and many other things, which is going to stimulate the Western Bloc economies with the shipbuilding, as well as internalize economics. And this is very important for you to understand. The more LNG we are exporting to Europe, the higher the US GDP it goes, higher employment, more economic stimulus at a time where there's a global slowdown, correct? We could be going into a recession, but as a defense against that recession, we're going to be exporting a massive amount of LNG to the EU, okay? So that's going to help secure the dollar as well, okay? And it has many other implications. I'll get into that on another video if you want. But that's why you have to know and understand geopolitics when it comes to investing as well. Don't just listen to some Yahoo on the internet say, hey, this stock's a great buy, without doing a complete and total analysis of a corporation for your long-term future. And the other thing I get with Exxon Mobil is when I bought it, it was almost a 12% dividend. During that low period, Exxon, I was, with that dividend, was buying more and more shares to increase my shareholdings over 10% extra shares while the price was extremely low. And that added to our profits as well. That's another reason why I'm not selling Exxon Mobil, because the position just kept expanding and the dividend is still at 4%. They have a 30-year track record of raising that dividend. So just something else to be aware of. And again, I'm not telling you to buy Exxon Mobil. In fact, it could be risky going forward. It just hit 96 today, 96 plus, which if the recession numbers come out and frighten people, they may be bailing out of Exxon, in which case I will buy more if the stock gets low enough at the numbers that I think are right. And I will do the same with Valero if the stock gets low enough. Okay, because the Exxon Mobil and other companies right now are going to be used as part of the defense against, from the dollar demise. Okay, so what we're losing from people using the dollar outside the US, we're needing more dollars inside, soaking up the excess. Is that making sense to you? Who's a big player in the geopolitics of that? For the Western countries, Exxon Mobil and many others, right? So, but Exxon Mobil does it better than anybody, in my opinion. They can produce oil at less than $40 a barrel. At $100 a barrel, that's quite a profit margin, isn't it? Their LNG, I believe they acquired a lot at $1 per unit, and their average is probably less than $2 per unit. It's $9 a unit today. Can you see the massive valuation changes due to the increase in these commodities? And that's going to continue as we feed Europe, as the requirement to feed Europe gets put upon the U.S. That is going to it's going to expand our GDP, defense against the dollar, as well as, I believe, ExxonMobil is the purest, best at doing all of this. And remember, ExxonMobil, when Britain found that big oil find over in GBR, who was in that? Was it British Petroleum? No, ExxonMobil. Following me here, we got other finds all over the world. ExxonMobil's everywhere, okay, and does it all. And they generally do it as good, if not better, in compiling margins when the project is finished, okay? So that's another reason why I like ExxonMobil. So this is just something I wanted to share to you. The last thing is ExxonMobil has a better ESG score than Tesla. Yes, you heard me right. One more time. ExxonMobil has a better ESG score than Tesla. Can you believe that? Part of the reason why is their plastics recycling process that they've patented, and they're starting to expand plants. I believe France is the first international country to actually be putting one of these plants in. Again, another profit stream for ExxonMobil with regards to plastics recycling globally, which eventually this is going to expand and expand and expand. Okay? And I think some excess plastic, as they extract the chemicals to make more plastics, they're also going to use what's left over. I believe in road building, I believe is the plan. So there may be a way to totally get rid of, not totally, but significantly decrease the level of plastic waste on the planet and actually make plastics valuable, right? In a recycling capacity. Okay, so those are all the reasons why I've held Exxon Mobil and I sold Valero. Okay, Valero doesn't have the diversified revenue streams that Exxon Mobil does. Valero doesn't have the global footprint that Exxon Mobil does. And Valero is not in the middle of the LNG that's going to be exported to Europe to defend against the dollar, the euro, and everything else, and internalize the NATO bloc GDP and cycle money from within. Okay, so that's the geopolitics. Then we have the plastics recycling, better ESG score than Tesla. Margins are fantastic. The value of their reserves has exploded. And I don't even know if you can calculate the total worth of Exxon right now. Okay? I'm sure somebody can, but I can't, or I'm not going to try and waste my time to compile all the information that's required to do that. Okay? Because Lord knows how many cheap reserves they bought up when all those smaller companies went bankrupt. Okay, so that would require quite a bit of work to calculate all that. But I wanted to make sure you were fully aware and understood this. I also believe that ExxonMobil, if oil and gas keeps climbing and the recession numbers don't come out too early, ExxonMobil could hit 105 to 115. However, I'm not counting on that. I think right now it's at fair value until the mass dump to the EU with LNG begins. Then that valuation could change again. But I believe there will be a correction in oil and thereby a correction in natural gas when recession numbers come out. For me, that's going to be another excellent opportunity to buy ExxonMobil because I believe the contract that's been penned between the US and the EU is going to be mandatory that they buy 25% of their LNG from the US. And I believe that's a national defense security relationship commitment between the EU and the United States, having to do with geopolitics as well as monetary support of both currencies and internalizing that revenue stream, which also leads to economic stimulus going forward. Jim out.